I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, bright, blessed days, dark, sacred night. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colours of a rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people going by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, "How do you do?" They're really saying, "I love you." I hear babies cry. I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Quite simply wonderful.
Happy birthday, David Attenborough. Thank you, Tim, for having introduced that already. And this is the video I wanted to show you the first day, and I promised you we will show you. So it is a bit late, but here it comes. And when Ignacio made the introduction, he said, the oldest, I was thinking he's referring to myself, and might be even true. No, but our organization is actually 168 years old now. So I will take you to the Frankfurt and through the Frankfurt Zoological Society in the next 30 minutes. And this is our mission statement. We conserve wildlife and ecosystems. We focus on protected areas and outstanding wild places. You see that word wild, and wild is really very much linked to wilderness, and this is core of our operation. And it's not easy to find a really good definition for what wilderness is or what wild is, and the best one I found is this one. It's a very simple one, the will of the land. This is wilderness. It's not the will of one species, Homo sapiens, it's the will of the land. And that is core for our operation, and we have heard a lot of restoration activities which are absolutely outstanding, amazing successes. We think this is very important, but we are a bit different now. So we are looking for the last existing wild places with the best integrity and biodiversity ecosystems on the planet, because we are also losing them on a high rate. In some circumstances, we also have to introduce missing species, but in general, we're looking for the pristine places. And there we do what you also heard from a number of the other organizations. We have a core area. We call it the anchor parks. In general, these are national parks, the gold standard, as Doug Tompkins called them, of conservation. Often they are paper parks. So the intention is to turn the paper parks into real parks by law enforcement, by monitoring. Sometimes we use also tourism. But then we do also what the others are doing. We work in the broader landscape. So these parks are not islands you can protect as islands. Now, so you have to work in the broader landscape. And this is, of course, working with and for the people and on sustainable land use, on education, now for the coming generations. And we have a special situation in most of the South American parks because there are people living inside the parks, indigenous populations, and therefore the setting and how we work is also different to the areas, for example, in Africa. So we concentrate on high biodiversity on large areas, more than 2,000 square kilometers. The country I come from, Germany, now has 16 national parks. The size of the 16 national parks together is 2,000 square kilometers. This is where we start with one area. But there are areas in our portfolio and program which are more than 40,000 square kilometers, larger than European countries, larger than Switzerland. And again, here you see it, we go for the wild and the pristine places. Luckily, Franz had a little bit about himself, so I thought, okay, I have to squeeze that in as well. So I was born and raised at the foothills of the Black Forest, and very similar to Franz now, I like that land, but it's cultivated land. And my perception later in life changed completely how I view and how I look into that land. But at that time, early on, I had my compass set up, luckily, intrinsically, and I was always linked to nature, and I wanted to study biology, so I did so, and then I did my diploma thesis on the brown hares in the conflict between farmers, hunters, and conservationists. But then I changed completely the ecosystem I was working in. So together with my wife, we sold everything we had in Germany, we closed all doors, and we embarked to one of the remotest places you can think of in the southeastern Peruvian rainforest. And we lived there in a tiny little camp tent for more than 3 years. And to study this amazing animal, the giant otters. The ones who don't know giant otters, I'm not very tall, but they're really tall. No? So they are taller like Tim and even taller like Franz and all the other tall guys. So they're more than 2 meters. No? So, and they live in family groups. They're highly endangered. So actually, from that point on, and that was the first encounter with the Frankfurt Zoological Society and the first project we did together with them. Since then, my entire path of life, until now, standing here, is somehow linked to the giant otters. So it was really through the entire career, even so the work we did for our PhD thesis and for the program later is a long time ago. It took me to an incredible journey around the globe, to one of the most stunning, amazing, magnificent places with the most impressive animals you can think of. And I'm still doing that. And that is very part of our work to be very close to the field. But as I said, the numbers are getting here a little bit wrong now, but you can imagine what it says. So we are 168 years old. The organization was founded to establish a zoo in the city of Frankfurt. They did so, and then came the First World War. They were running out of money, and they handed over the zoo, the zoological garden, to the city of Frankfurt. So luckily, we don't run the zoo anymore. No. But then everything changed after the Second World War, when this gentleman arrived here, Professor Bernard Schenk, and he rebuilt the zoo, and he started really the conservation work of the organization, mainly in Africa. And then he produced a movie called Serengeti Shall Not Die, and in 1960, he won the Oscar for that movie, the Academy Award in Hollywood. So there are already 2 lessons for you, and we are always told to give you lessons. No? So 2 lessons. First one is you can shape a lot, you can make an organization very different. No? And second, you might even get very crazy awards. No? I don't know if any botanists are here in the room. Some might identify the tiny little seedling. This is Ceiba petandra. I mean, it grows, it becomes one of the largest trees you find in the Amazon. And this is how we feel, how we developed over the last 25 years. And so we are a society. Everybody can become a member. If you can become a member of the Frankfurt Zoological Society. But we also created a foundation. I will not take you very much into the legal differences between foundation and society, but one thing might be is to remember that under German law, a foundation is you put your money in, you lock it up in an endowment you can never access again. Why should you do that? Because it should be sitting there for perpetuity, and you live only out of the interest and the capital earning out of that foundation. And we always had that in mind, this long-term, this perpetuity approach, this baseline funding. And so we set up that foundation 25 years ago. and started with a capital of 35 million. It has grown to 100 million now. And in the same time, we made a payout of that foundation, even so it kept growing, of 40 million euros over these 25 years. When I started in Frankfurt, it was a very small, it was one office room, 4 people, 1 table. Now we are 80 people in Frankfurt, and we are globally 1,300 people in staff. Our budget also has grown tremendously from a yearly budget of 4 million to 65 currently, and keeps growing, luckily. Now. We work in 20 countries, in 4 continents, and actually I'm very proud that we have quite a good number of staff here in the room and representing really the 4 continents. So we have people from the 4 continents here in the room. Our stronghold is Africa. There we invest about 60–70% of our funds there. Second comes South America, third Europe, and then we also have some projects in Southeastern Asia. We are pretty much focused in how we work, where we work, and I feel a little bit really embarrassed here because you know that background, it is so beautiful, and it's marine and it's fish. And 70% of the world is marine, and we have, by purpose, excluded marine environments in our program. So we believe the oceans are super important. It's not only belief, we know it now, but we want to focus. And this is where our expertise and our experience lies, is on the land. And this is why we are concentrating on the land. But even on the land, we focus on certain biomes. You would not expect that to be a picture from Europe, but this is the Amazon of Europe, as we call it, the Polesia in Ukraine. And similar to France, we are working since many years in Ukraine, and we keep on going. It's one of our most difficult countries, war-torn since 4 years now, and we are working in 11 national parks in Ukraine. So rivers and wetlands are very important. Then, of course, tropical forests at the core centers of biodiversity. So tropical forests are in our portfolio in South America, Asia, and Africa. Then comes also to other kinds of forests. Now, forest is the centers of biodiversity. So it's not only the rainforest, the cloud forest, the dry forest, the river rainforest, the coniferous forest of the global north as well. And then comes second, so that was the first 2 biomes we work in, the wetlands and the forest. And the third one is the savanna and grasslands, mainly in Eastern Africa. Here an example from Tanzania, super famous Serengeti. And just as a side note, we are 65 years active in Serengeti. We still are now. And so this is the time frame. We go somewhere and we hardly ever leave now. And you see here a tiny little part of one of the largest migration of land animals in the world, the wildebeest migration of the Serengeti, more than 1.2 million animals migrating according to the seasons and the nutrient situation in that. Then the last of the biomes we work in is the mountains. We do so increasingly for a number of reasons, water catchment, but also for climate change. Now, and this beautiful picture is from the Bale Mountains in Ethiopia, and there are about 30 million people depending on the rivers and the catchments of the Bale Mountains. So this is super important for humanity as well. So we go into areas where nobody goes, where you need expedition types of operations to even enter the areas or to make the ground truthing or the monitoring or whatever you have to do in these areas. This is an example from the Canuco Mountains in Guyana. We work very closely with park authorities and partners. We don't own the land, with the exception of Germany. There we own some land, but otherwise, as we go for the large areas, there's no way we can buy the land. In many countries, it's not even possible. So that's why we work very close with the national park authorities in all the countries we operate in, under different kinds of models. Sometimes it's financial and technical support. Sometimes we go in a deeper correlation with the park management, and then we also go into really strong partnerships and co-management models in some of the area, where we even create purpose vehicles for that. As I told you, we do quite a lot of education. Actually, we have education in pretty much every program we are running now. We believe this is really important for the acceptance of the national park, also to build knowledge among the future decision makers. And that's a picture from the highlands of the Manu National Park in Peru. This is the area where I started working with the giant otters. It's absolutely core center of biodiversity. Again, a side note, the bird list of the Manu National Park stands at 1,030 bird species. So that is 3 times what we have in entire Germany. This is 10% of all the bird species in the world. Every 10th bird of the world occurs in that park. And that park goes up to more than 4,000 meters in the high Andes. There were some human-wildlife conflicts with the Andean bear, and it was possible to turn around the perception of that Andean bear just by education and support to the farmers, from a hated animal to a beloved friend. This little girl is still a little bit skeptical, but it will change over time. We had heard that very often, and we couldn't emphasize it enough. Working with indigenous and local communities is absolutely important. Improving land use, agriculture, chicken raising, honeybee production, whatever. So there's a lot we can do there, and it's highly appreciated. It's really also a fun part of our work to work with these indigenous and local populations, because we also learn a lot. And if I say we, this is not really mainly Europeans or North Americans or whatever. Now, 90% of our staff is national now, and often we try to employ people from the villages, from the local communities. We have a number of indigenous people on our payroll. We call ourselves an organization with the boots on the ground, even so sometimes we have to take the boots off. But we are not. We are a blue-collar organization. Now, so we don't run big offices in big cities. We are not an advocacy and campaigning organization. We believe it's all important. Campaigning against plastic pollution is super important. But we are not. This is not our expertise. We are concentrating on fixing and safeguarding ecosystems on the ground. And sometimes we have to look for partners which you don't expect so much into conservation. This is the Peruvian army. And we link with other state forces in areas where the security and violence situation is not according to deal with on the conservation level. Park rangers in Peru have no weapons, but they operate in areas where there's very violent environment by the illegal gold miners. And this is where we link pretty successfully, I must say, not always, but in some cases, with the army, but under, of course, human rights and social safeguards. That is also very important. We are science-based, and it's a bit of a pity, really, that I have to emphasize that. I never did 10 years ago, but these days we really have to emphasize that we are science-based. And some of you might know one of this guy looking at the camera trap here, Kevin, with us now. We are an organization with a range, and we don't only provide vehicles, we look also for the maintenance. Now, so we have a number of workshops for vehicles, trucks, planes, boats, whatever is needed. So let's look at a few successes. I just took some out as examples from the last years, also for us to celebrate. And so we are very proud that we can grow not only in financial numbers, but what really counts at the end is the biodiversity, and biodiversity is linked to area, to square kilometers, hectares, whatever. So we have increased the area we are working in by nearly 140,000 square kilometers just in the last 5 years. So this is more the size of Greek. And we are now operating in core protected areas, not in the broader landscape, core protected areas of 400,000 square kilometers, and that is more than the size of Germany. So it's a quite significant part. It will not rescue the world, of course not, but it will contribute to a better world. Then we do some monitoring of some key species, indicator species, umbrella species, species which are really important for the ecosystems. And also here, there are some positive numbers because there's so much bad news. I thought I'd bring you a bit of good news, and good news is coming from Western Tanzania, from the Nyerere Selous Ecosystem National Park and Game Reserve, together more than 50,000 square kilometers big, now a huge area. And this area was really the slaughterhouse of elephants and poaching. You can't imagine. So in the 2010 to 2016, more or less, more than 40,000 elephants were killed in that ecosystem. So we saw a dramatic decline. We went there. It took us a long time to get the food on the ground, the boots on the ground, but luckily now the population starts increasing, nearly 30% over the last 7 years. Now 20,000 elephants back in the system, quite significant today as an elephant population in Africa. Looking to Southeastern Asia, where we are active in Sumatra, we heard about the amazing work in northern Sumatra and the Loisa ecosystem. We are working in central Sumatra, in one of the last remaining forest blocks in central Sumatra, surrounded by a sea of monocultural palm oil. So it's really absolutely heartbreaking when you go to the areas, but when you're inside the forest, it's amazing. And so we do a release program since more than 25 years of orangutans, and we have released 200 orangutans to the area. That is a bit different than the restoration idea. Here it's really a genetic population, and also all these animals were confiscated animals. So they had to be released into the wild, and this is what we did. But now we are concentrating very much of that last remaining forest block. If you remember our threshold size, this is a little bit below, but we own some concessions around the park, and then we come to the 2,000 threshold where we want to operate now. Another really good news also from Central Asia, from Kazakhstan. This is the picture from Altindala. Altindala translated means the golden steppe, another grassland area. And there you find the only antelope in Europe, the saigas, very important for the system. They got hammered really hard by poaching as well, similar to the elephants, for the horns for China, but also for meat. And then they recovered, and then they get hurt again by bacteria and infection. Hundreds of thousands died, 90% of the population was gone. But in the last 5 years, they recovered really fast, surprisingly fast, from 500,000 to 4 million. So that was really great. And then, of course, the work with the local communities and indigenous populations. And we heard from North Luanga about the COCOBAS, the Community Conservation Banks, microfinance systems, which are different to most of the other microfinance systems because you don't put external money in. The money is aggregated among the people, and there's a strong link to conservation. Now, so every business which is set up is checked for its conservation impact. More than 4,000 members around the Serengeti, 1.6 million euros in turnaround in these community conservation banks in a rural area where people are economically really poor. Now, that is pretty impressive. And Mahale, that is also in Western Tanzania, more than 6,000 members, and we are getting to 1 million. So that is really nice to see that common work with the communities. And because that picture is so nice, I found another one which I had to really add here. And that is just how, when you work together, you can have a lot of successes. So why is she now putting the Mona Lisa up here? Now, so this little piece of artwork, which is 77 or 43 centimeters, it's much smaller than everybody thinks now. It is in the Louvre in Paris. It has been drawn by Leonardo da Vinci 500 years ago. 500 years ago. And people kept that and believed we should safeguard it. And there were kingdoms and wars, world wars went over, and we still have the Mona Lisa, and we can look at it. And it is thought to be the most prestigious, also in terms of money painting. So the value is estimated to be 1 billion, 1,000 million. But actually, that number doesn't count for anything because it can't be sold. So it's something which has an incredible value, which can't be sold, and which should be kept in perpetuity. Does that ring a bell with you? Yeah? Yeah? Okay. So here we are. That is the most important national parks of the world. It's exactly that. So So if we can contain and keep and safeguard the Mona Lisa, why can't we do that with the national parks? And we always had that idea with the Mona Lisa in mind, also because we have the oldest foundation in Germany, which are more than 700 years old. So it works now. So we integrated that into a concept. We called it the legacy landscape concept. We developed that in 2018, and in 2020 it was taken up by the German government, and they established what is called the Legacy Landscape Fund. We have not enough time to go into details, but what I want to tell you is how this is going to work. You have to collect 30 million per area. This is locked up in that foundation, as I told you. You can never access it again, so you're only out of the interest. So per area, you need 30 million. If you have 30 million, you can start one area. Then there's another 30, and another 30. There's no limit. With this 30 million, you make a return on investment roughly on the secure side of 1 million per year. This is delivered to the site. So what you get on the site is a baseline funding in perpetuity. So it helps you through crisis, it helps you through COVID times, it helps you also to plan very long term. Now there are 15 legacy landscape sites existing, 5 are in perpetuity, and we are currently working on really scaling the whole thing up. There are a number of organizations already involved now, and a number of legacy landscape sites. African Parks was also one of the pilot members of Legacy Landscape, and there's still a long way to go. So maybe we should ask a little bit our staff what they think about the Frankfurt Zoological Society, and here you can hear a few.
It chose FZS because I really was fascinated very much by its mission to restore and protect large ecosystems for wilderness and people.
I chose FZS as the best place to work because of their long-term commitment to securing wilderness places and biodiversity worldwide, and because they are boots on the ground.
I chose FZS as a better place to work with because of its long-term plans in conservation, and also it's the integrity that it holds with the communities around it.
I am very passionate about nature, and I chose FZS as the best place to work because I like the impactful work that FZS does worldwide, and I love being part of the international team where each and everyone has the same values and is committed for the same cause to preserve ecosystems and wildlife.
FZS is the best place to work for me because especially when I started, it was really a platform where you can start exceptional conservation projects. So there was a lot of room for creativity. My favorite animal is the orangutan. I saw my first orangutan as a kid in a zoo. And I immediately fell in love with the orangutans because they are so smart. So they are so close to us. 86% of their genes are identical with our genes, so they are close cousins, and that's why I love them so much.
When during the job interview, our director, Dr. Christof Schenck, he told me, your job will be very difficult, but never boring. Being part of this really motivated me and made me choose FZS.
So a short disclaimer, nobody got paid for that interview, no. And so very quickly going through the last slides, and many of you have seen that picture, Earth-Set it is called now. It was taken just a few weeks ago from Artemis 2. By the way, it has cost 4 billion to take that picture now. The entire Artemis mission costed 90 million euros, 90,000 million euros. And there's another picture which is called Earthrise. Might be there's a meaning in that why they call the first one Earthrise and the second one Earth-Set. Now, they are 58 years in between now, these two pictures. And the first one, the space crew was really taken. This was the first picture which was taken from space now. And they saw this little sensitive blue marble, fragile in the infinity of space where there's no life around now. What had happened in this 48 years between the pictures, and you know all that, I go very quickly through that. Human population has doubled, more than doubled now. 1 million species threatened by extinction, incredible decline in wilderness, temperature rise, climate change kicks in, more than 3/4 of the Earth shaped and destroyed partly by humans. We are in Valencia. 2 years ago, we had an incredible flood here. Now, 236 people died. Now, the costs are on 10 billion at least. A few months later, we had the fires in Los Angeles. Now, the costs are 200 billion now. So it's not very logic what we do to this planet. And we have seen that graph now. I will not go into the details of the numbers, but we are on a steep, steep, steep decline on pretty much all the parameters we look at. We have surpassed 7 out of 9 planetary boundaries. We have reached tipping points. We see ecosystems collapsing. But, and this is the most important remark, but we can bend the curve. Now, we can work for the 30 by 30 now, and this is why we as FZS really try to do so, and we work hard. The house is on fire, we have to do more. So we want to double our conservation impact by 2030. Of course, it's hard to know what is the conservation impact, so we're working on that very much now with a number of indicators, landscape, total area. We have threat-based index and biodiversity index. We have to get better in measuring what we are doing now and getting the data really and looking deeper into the ecosystems now and really knowing what's going on and what our impact is. And that is also, of course, different in different ecosystems. By the way, I don't know what AI has created a strange animal in the middle. No? And also disclaimer, these are the only AI-generated pictures I have in my entire presentation. So the rest is really all real pictures. No? Here, Professor Ignacio Jimenez. The lessons. Now we asked the lessons as I'm getting to the end of the time. I go very quickly through that. Tim, I think it was you. Now you had that, stay curious. I think this is key. Now, imagine you have a car and a wrench, and you are told to build a helicopter out of what you have with the car. Anybody volunteering? It will not work, but nature shows us every day now, from a caterpillar to a flying butterfly, and that is tiny little example. Everything is so stunning, magic, incredible, and we know only such a little piece of all that. Now, we only know 2 million species, we might dare 8 or 10. We hear that often, it's easy words now, but really think about that deeply and think if you are focused, think if you keep it, think if you are strategic in your decisions. So for all the other lessons also, really go deep into yourself, because I can't give you all the lessons and examples and experiences for that, but really think about that if you really go for that. Go for the mission impossible, and there's another word for that. If your dreams don't scare you, they are not big enough. So go for that. Never give up, even if you have to try to go through these invasive pistil plants and you can't walk and you can't swim and you can't hardly paddle. Unite your team, really super important now. And if you change one team member, the dynamic of the team already changes. So constantly you have to invest in your teams and get them aligned. Yes, we all work hard. We have to rest sometimes. Celebrating success, it's already here now. So we are getting anyhow closer to that. To lead by example, also very important. You can't push the elephants to go into one direction. They have to follow you. There's no other way to do it. No. Give freedom to the staff, also very important. Now, so of course we have processes and we have administration and we have guardrails and all this stuff, but we have to give them freedom now. And we also have to look for the next to come, the next generation. So we need the new captains now, and we have to go together now. And that is, I think, the main message of these days now, that we should do it together now. So these are the 10 advices, lessons I want to give you. Now, think deeply about them now, and think what you are following, but if they make sense to you or not. Now.